Have you ever stumbled upon an idea so uncomfortable that people almost wish it would stay hidden? That's exactly how some of the writings of Arthur Schopenhauer feel, especially when it comes to his sharp, unapologetic views about women, relationships, and desire. Let me ask you, have you ever heard a truth that made you stop and think, even if you didn't fully agree with it? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes the most uncomfortable ideas are the ones that stick the longest. Schopenhauer was one of the boldest philosophers of the 19th century, known not only for his pessimistic outlook on life, but also for his piercing analysis of human behavior. He didn't sugarcoat his opinions, and when he turned his attention toward women, his words sparked debates that continue to this day. Whether you find him brutally honest or deeply unfair, his perspective forces us to look at relationships through a raw, unfiltered lens. In this video, we'll dive into Schopenhauer's controversial insights on women, why he believed they held hidden power, how he thought men often misunderstood them, and what lessons we can still draw from his philosophy today. By the end, you'll see why some people would rather these ideas stay buried, and why others believe they reveal a deeper, timeless truth. And if this resonates with you, write seductive wisdom in the comments so I know you stayed with me until the end. Arthur Schopenhauer is often called the philosopher of pessimism, and for good reason. He believed that life, at its core, was driven by an endless cycle of desire, struggle, and disappointment. According to him, human beings are not guided by reason as much as they'd like to believe. Instead, they are ruled by blind unconscious forces he called the will. This will, he argued, is the real engine of human behavior, pushing us towards survival, reproduction, and competition. In Schopenhauer's eyes, happiness was never more than a brief pause between two struggles. The moment one desire is satisfied, another rises to take its place, leaving people restless and dissatisfied. For him, this wasn't just a personal observation. It was the universal law of human existence. No matter how rich, powerful, or successful someone became, they were still slaves to the same endless striving. One striking example he gives is love and attraction. Schopenhauer believed that what people call romance or falling in love was not about poetry or soulmates, but about the will to reproduce. From his perspective, every romantic feeling, every heartbreak, and every passion was simply nature's way of tricking humans into continuing the species. In other words, love was not noble. It was biological compulsion dressed in beautiful lies. Psychologists today might frame this in terms of evolutionary biology. Modern science agrees that many of our behaviors, especially around attraction, are rooted in survival and reproduction. What Schopenhauer saw, long before the science existed, was that human beings often fool themselves into thinking they're acting freely, when in fact deeper instincts are pulling the strings. But this dark view of human nature wasn't meant to insult people. It was meant to expose illusions. By stripping away the comforting stories we tell ourselves, Schopenhauer believed he was showing life as it really is. He argued that freedom and wisdom come not from chasing endless desires, but from seeing them for what they are. At the same time, his ideas are unsettling. To say that love, ambition, and even morality are masks for instinct is to challenge some of the deepest beliefs people hold about themselves. This is why Schopenhauer's philosophy is often resisted. It forces people to confront uncomfortable truths about their own motives. So here's the question for you. Do you think Schopenhauer was right? That much of human life is just instinct and survival dressed up as something noble? Or do you believe there's more to us than that? Share your view in the comments. I'd love to hear where you stand on this timeless debate. When Schopenhauer turned his attention to women, his words became even more controversial. He believed that women embodied the will to life more directly than men, and that much of their behavior was shaped by instincts tied to survival and reproduction. In his essay on women, he argued that women were short-sighted in their goals, focused more on the immediate present than on long-term achievements. To him, this wasn't necessarily an insult. It was a reflection of their biological role in preserving and raising life. He claimed that women's primary power lay in attraction, not in reason. For Schopenhauer, a woman's beauty and charm were tools of nature designed to capture a man's attention and ensure the continuation of the species. In other words, what society romanticized as feminine mystery was, in his view, nature's strategy for survival. This perspective strips away the poetry of love and replaces it with biology and necessity. Consider his observation that women are often more practical than men. He noted that while men might chase lofty goals like fame, art, or philosophy, women tended to focus on stability, comfort, and security. Today, some psychologists might frame this in terms of evolutionary psychology. Men historically competed for status, while women prioritized safety and resources for raising children. Whether or not you agree, Schopenhauer believed this division of focus explained much of human interaction. But his views were also sharply critical. He accused women of being manipulative at times, using charm and emotion to get what they wanted from men. From his perspective, this wasn't moral judgment, but survival instinct. He saw women as naturally attuned to influence and persuasion, while men were more often blinded by desire. His words were so blunt that even in his own century they sparked outrage. Yet even in his critique, there's an underlying theme. He saw women as powerful, not through physical strength or abstract thought, but through their ability to shape men's behavior. In his writings, women often held the upper hand in the most fundamental human arena: love, desire, and family. Men, blinded by passion, were in some sense servants of women's hidden power. This idea remains thought-provoking. If women hold influence not by brute force but through subtle control of relationships, then perhaps Schopenhauer was pointing to a kind of power society often ignores. What he described negatively could also be seen as recognition of women's central role in shaping human destiny. So here's the question. Do you see Schopenhauer's view as unfair criticism or as a blunt recognition of women's hidden power in human life? Share your perspective in the comments, because how we answer this shapes the way we understand not only his philosophy but our own relationships. For Schopenhauer, desire was the battlefield where men and women constantly wrestled for influence. He believed that attraction was never just about romance, it was about survival and power. In his philosophy, the will to life used men and women as instruments, pulling them together through passion but often trapping them in conflict. What looked like love on the surface was, in his view, a hidden struggle between biological drives and individual freedom. He argued that women wielded power through the force of desire. Their ability to inspire longing in men gave them influence that was often underestimated. Men, blinded by attraction, might sacrifice wealth, reputation, or even reason just to satisfy that urge. Schopenhauer saw countless examples in history where powerful men lost everything because of their passions. A clear reminder, he thought, that desire was not just personal but deeply dangerous. This hidden struggle wasn't one-sided, though. Schopenhauer also believed that women, while influential, were equally trapped by the will. Their beauty and charm were not tools they invented, but instincts given by nature. Just as men were driven to pursue, women were driven to secure stability and protection. Both sides, in his eyes, were pawns of the same force, playing roles they didn't fully control. Think of a modern example. A man might believe he is freely choosing to impress a woman, buying expensive gifts or altering his lifestyle to win her approval. Yet from Schopenhauer's perspective, he is not acting freely. He is acting under the spell of desire. Similarly, the woman, while appearing in control, is also responding to instincts tied to security and reproduction. The struggle appears personal, but it's actually biological. Psychologists today recognize similar patterns in what they call mate selection strategies. Studies show that men and women prioritize different traits. Men often drawn to youth and beauty, women often drawn to stability and resources. Schopenhauer predicted this long before modern science, framing it not as choice, but as necessity, a script written by nature itself. What makes this view unsettling is that it challenges the romantic story we like to believe about love. That it's pure, noble, or entirely free. Schopenhauer would argue that behind every poem, every serenade, and every heartbreak is the same hidden struggle of desire and power. For him, love was not a fairy tale, but a battlefield disguised in flowers. So here's the question. Do you see desire as a genuine expression of freedom, or as a hidden chain pulling us in directions we can't fully control? Share your take in the comments. It's a debate that still divides people today, just as it did in Schopenhauer's time. Schopenhauer believed that one of the greatest illusions in life is how men perceive women. According to him, men rarely see women as they truly are. Instead, they see a projection created by their own desires. Attraction blinds men, causing them to exaggerate virtues and ignore flaws. In his words, love is nature's trick. It makes a man idealize a woman so that he pursues her, without realizing he's being guided by instincts deeper than reason. He argued that this blindness explains why men often make poor decisions in relationships. A man might convince himself that a woman is perfect, overlooking warning signs or differences in values. Later, when the initial passion fades, he feels trapped or disillusioned. For Schopenhauer, this wasn't just bad luck. It was proof that men were prisoners of their own illusions. Modern psychology agrees with parts of this. Researchers talk about the halo effect, the tendency to see someone as better overall just because we're attracted to one quality, like their looks or charm. For example, a man might assume a woman is kind or trustworthy simply because he finds her beautiful. Over time, this distortion fades, often leading to disappointment. Schopenhauer gave examples from everyday life. Men sacrificing careers, fortunes, or even honor to win the attention of women they idealized. History is full of powerful figures undone by infatuation. For him, this showed that desire clouds judgment so completely that even the wisest man can fail to see clearly when he is in love. But he also believed that women played into this illusion, sometimes knowingly, sometimes not. By presenting themselves in ways that amplify charm and beauty, they became mirrors of what men wanted to see. From his perspective, this wasn't manipulation as much as instinct. Both men and women acting out roles designed by the will to life. What makes this idea striking is how relevant it still feels. How many relationships today begin with passion, only to collapse when the reality of each person emerges. Schopenhauer would say it's because men never truly saw the woman. They only saw their own fantasy projected onto her. So let me ask you, have you ever idealized someone at first only to later realize you didn't see them clearly at all? Share your experience in the comments. It might help others recognize when they're falling into the same illusion. While Schopenhauer lived in the 19th century, many of his ideas about human nature and relationships still echo today. His core message was simple but uncomfortable. Desire is not as romantic or pure as we imagine. It is instinct, and instinct often blinds us. For modern relationships, this raises a powerful lesson. We must be cautious about mistaking passion for truth. In today's world, where dating apps and social media amplify appearances and surface-level attraction, Schopenhauer's warnings feel even more relevant. People often idealize someone based on photos, charm, or first impressions, only to discover later that the connection lacked depth. Psychologists call this projection. We project our hopes onto someone else instead of seeing who they really are. Schopenhauer would argue that this mistake is not new. It has always been part of human nature. One lesson, then, is the importance of patience, rather than rushing into relationships based on immediate chemistry. Taking time to see how a person behaves in different situations reveals their true character. Do they keep promises? Do they treat others with respect? These signals matter far more than initial attraction, yet they are often ignored in the heat of passion. Another lesson is self-awareness. Schopenhauer believed men often became blind servants of desire. In modern terms, this means recognizing when emotions are clouding judgment. For example, someone might ignore repeated red flags simply because they are physically attracted. Understanding that desire can deceive helps people make wiser choices before commitments turn into regrets. At the same time, his philosophy reminds us that relationships are not just about passion, but also about purpose. If love is partly driven by instinct, then building a lasting partnership requires values beyond biology, shared goals, faith, respect, and trust. Otherwise, once the fire of desire fades, there's nothing left to hold the bond together. Even if you don't agree with all of Schopenhauer's views, the challenge he presents is valuable. To strip away illusions and see relationships as they are, not as we wish them to be. His philosophy may sound harsh, but it pushes us toward clarity, a quality every healthy relationship needs. So here's the reflection. Do you think modern relationships fail because people ignore these timeless lessons about patience and self-awareness? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insight could help someone else approach their own relationships with more wisdom. Schopenhauer's philosophy is sharp, but if taken to extremes, it can become dangerous. His dark view of human nature, his harsh critique of women, and his relentless focus on desire as illusion can lead someone to bitterness instead of wisdom. That's why one of the most important lessons in approaching his work is balance. Using philosophy as a tool for clarity, not as a weapon to justify cynicism. The truth is, there's value in his insights. Recognizing that desire can blind us helps protect against reckless choices. Seeing how easily illusions creep into relationships encourages patience and discernment. But if someone interprets his words as a reason to mistrust all women, reject love entirely, or approach life with constant suspicion, then they've misunderstood the point. Schopenhauer wanted to strip away illusions, not trap people in despair. Modern psychology teaches something similar. Awareness of instincts doesn't mean rejecting them. It means understanding them. For example, knowing that attraction often starts with biology doesn't mean romance is worthless. It simply means we need to build relationships on deeper foundations like respect, shared values, and trust. Balance comes from seeing both sides, the instinctual pull and the human capacity for meaning. Think of it like fire. Left uncontrolled, fire destroys, but when used wisely, it warms and sustains life. Desire works the same way. If we let it blind us, it burns us. If we understand it, we can channel it into lasting bonds. This is where philosophy becomes practical, not in rejecting life, but in navigating it more skillfully. Another danger of imbalance is arrogance. Some men read Schopenhauer and conclude that they now see the truth, while everyone else is blind. But true wisdom is humble. It acknowledges limits. Philosophy should help us grow in awareness, not inflate the ego. Balance means using insight to improve your own choices, not to condemn everyone else. In the end, philosophy should sharpen your mind, not harden your heart. Schopenhauer's views can open your eyes, but your task is to decide how to apply them. With balance, his lessons can make you stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. Without balance, they risk making you cynical and disconnected. So ask yourself, how do you use philosophy in your own life? As a tool to grow and understand, or as an excuse to stay bitter? Share your reflection in the comments, because wisdom is not just about what you know, but how you use it. Schopenhauer's words are sharp, unsettling, and often uncomfortable, but that's exactly why they matter. He forces us to question the illusions we build around love, desire, and human nature. Whether we fully agree with him or not, his philosophy challenges us to look deeper, to strip away the surface stories, and to see the forces shaping our choices. But wisdom isn't about adopting his views blindly. It's about balance. His warnings remind us to be cautious of desire and illusion. Yet real strength comes from using that awareness to build healthier, wiser relationships. Philosophy should guide us toward clarity, not lock us in bitterness. If this video opened your eyes, let me know in the comments. And to show me you've stayed with me until the end, write seductive wisdom below. Your reflection might be the reminder someone else needs today.